Hello friends, welcome to the world of industrial safety management. Today we are going to have discourse 9, which is part 5 of the total 5 parts of hazard identification, risk assessment and risk management. That means it is the last part of this topic. Here we are going to look into management of CAPA, that is corrective and preventive action. So let us try to understand what is the meaning of CAPA and risk registers. Particularly first CAPA and how we create CAPA register, how create the risk registers. As already said, CAPA means it is a corrective and preventive action. It's an abbreviation decided to mitigate the risk which are identified through hazard identification and assessed through risk assessment. Now you know the steps, that first you have to go for hazard identification, then you have to do the risk assessment. So 2 steps are completed, but it is not enough. If you only assess the risk and do not take any action on that, there is no use of having the risk assessment. So on the risk assessment for a particular hazards, we decide certain action to bring in that risk, which may be a major risk or significant risk. So how to bring it down? What should be done? What are the present controls? If the controls are not there, it's a new hazard identified and there are no controls. So which controls are to be established? And if some controls are there, how they are to be improved? So you decide on the actions. What are the corrective action and what are the preventive action? So preventive action means we totally mitigate the risk. Corrective means probably you bring down the risk to the minor or minimal level. Now everything is to be documented. So CAPA register is a documentation. There is a particular format and we document all the observed and identified hazards with risk rating into it, along with the action plan proposed to either eliminate or reduce the risk to an acceptable level. So you create a register, you create a document and you enter whatever the hazards are there and you have assessed the risk for that hazard. So please try to understand that for every hazard identified and entered into the CAPA register, a unique number is given. Then there are references to on what date the risk assessment was done, then who has done the risk assessment, then what are the present controls and what is the present risk assessment, then what will be the action plan, okay, and how the risk will be reduced after that action, then who is the owner of the action, who will supervise the action, then what is the timeline or the last date for the completion of CAPA. So it's a very thorough register and there you will find there are many columns in that register. But you have to religiously document everything and follow it. So as I said, it also include who will be responsible to take the action, who will supervise the action and the timeline for the completion. Now risk register is very similar to CAPA register, but mainly significant risk, major and critical, which are to be escalated to higher management are entered into it. So higher management do not look into every CAPA. They are concerned more with the significant risk or the major risk. And so only major risk and critical risk are entered into risk register. Now risk registers, it may be a site register. So in that site register, probably the practices are different. In some companies, all the risks which are coming out of the different departments are taken into the same register. That means there may be business risk, there may be quality risk, there may be risk for the supply of the material, the supply chain risks, and there may be EHS risk. So all the risks are entered into the risk register. You may have the different pages allotted to the different the business risk, the purchase or the supply chain risk, and so on. Even in EHS, sometimes you do the bifurcation of environmental risk, you put differently, and the occupational and health risk are noted separately. So it depends on the how there is understanding of the top management and the middle level management. Okay, so CAPA register and risk register are more or less same, except again CAPA is not only for EHS. CAPA is again for other risks, business risk, the supply chain risk, and so on. But here we are considering CAPA only for safety, or risk register only for safety. So how to do the CAPA management? The first thing is, what are the barriers? So many a times there is a lack of follow-up on risk assessment. You do the risk assessment, but then you do not enter those assessed risks and hazards into the CAPA register or significant risk in the risk register. So you don't follow up that. Then there is a question of prioritization and management of CAPA. Sometimes what happens that there are too many CAPAs and it is difficult to prioritize. So there may be a question arising or posed to the concerned people that if there are 3, 4, 5 significant risks, then which risk is to be prioritized? Okay, and so there may be an administrative burden, because it is not easy to maintain CAPA register and risk register. Somebody has to devote his time, somebody has to devote his energy, and it is a job that it needs perseverance, it needs patience. So sometimes it becomes an administrative burden because people don't have time to do that. Now, what are the proposed solutions and actions? Create a system of follow-up of risk assessment. Assign that job to a small group of people. Establish site risk register and CAPA tracking system. Means there has to be a tracking of the CAPA and risk register. Means you have to see whether the CAPA or the risk are being documented or registered into the respective register as soon as the risk assessment is completed, and if some accident happens and there is CAPA coming out of it, if new machine comes, there is a CAPA coming out of it. So whenever a risk is assessed, a CAPA is to be created without fail, and if you don't do that, you will miss on the actions. So registering the CAPA is important, but tracking is also important. Okay, you created a register, fine, you entered everything in that, but somebody has to track it, no? That whether the actions are being taken in a given timeline and the actions which you have envisaged, whether there are certain problems, whether there will be a need to increase the date of the CAPA completion and so on, which CAPAs are completed, right? So tracking is required. Unless tracking is done, CAPA will not be complete. So track and review CAPA's status for risk. Now escalate overdue CAPAs. Meaning of escalation means you must bring it to the notice of the higher management that these are the CAPA. For some or the other reason, the CAPA is not being completed in a given period of time, a given timeline, and these are the reasons why the CAPA is not completed. And those reasons must be the convincing reasons to the higher authorities. So maybe there will be a sanction to extend the date of the CAPA, that okay, you are not able to complete in this timeline, you are going to get another 8 days or 15 days to complete it. Next, establish KPI, means key performance index for CAPA. How you can establish a KPI? That means say there are 100 CAPA. So you are tracking the system today and there are 100 CAPA, and out of the 100 CAPA there are say 25 overdue CAPAs. Okay, so you can have a ratio 25 upon 100. So 75% work is completed, 25% is still remaining. Then you may establish a index or a standard that any point of time there should not be CAPAs overdue which are more than 10%. So this is KPI. So unless otherwise you set a standard for the completion of CAPA, probably you will be lacking in tracking it and completing it. Establish PDP objectives and targets for CAPA performance. So for every individual personal development program, that person must be evaluated for the performance of the CAPA completion. If he has given certain CAPAs to be completed, how many CAPAs he is completing? Then prioritization is a very important job. That which risks are to be prioritized? Friends, whatever I am talking right now is very, very important. It's very, very practical. So all these follow-up of risk assessment, creation of the tracker, creation of the KPIs, and establishing PDP objectives and so on. All these practices are done in the big companies. Now risk register, already we talked something about risk register, that all identified risk must be entered into the departmental risk register. So department risk register must be reviewed quarterly at a minimum and updates completed to reflect current status. Means tracking, that how many are complete, how many are completed before time, how many are pending. And then this departmental risk register is escalated to the higher management. All significant risks must be escalated to site significant risk register. So a site register is different, departmental register is different. So site register is the concern for the higher management, departmental register is a concern for the departmental heads. So all significant risks must be escalated to site significant risk. So which risks are below 10 may not be escalated. but the risk which are above 10, they will have to be escalated to the top management. So they are to be escalated to the site significant risk register and managed to completion with oversight from the site risk management team. So there may be a site risk management team consisting of the HODs. So there may be 4, 5, 6 members, the members of the higher management, and they are supposed to overview the risk register, site risk register, where the significant CAPA is entered. So when actions are completed, the responsible manager must ensure the status of CAPA is recorded as complete on the risk register. So if you have completed it, then there has to be a remark in the remark column that it is complete. Managers must ensure mitigative actions are monitored and updated on a regular basis. So you have decided some corrective or mitigative action, but that is to be monitored, that whether it is being completed and how much you have completed. So there must be some 3, 4, 5 steps in the mitigative action. So out of 5, 3 steps are completed and 2 steps are remaining, like that. When mitigative actions are completed, the risk is archived from the risk register. So that is removed, or there may be some remark that now this risk is not part of the risk register as it is being completed. It is called as archiving of the risk. Now, what are the risk register sources? Again, friends, it is very important that what comes to risk register. So there are 4 levels of audit: L1, L2, L3 and L4. L1 is self-inspection, that you yourself, the departmental people inspect their department and find out the risks. They assess the risk with the help of the EHS advisor and then escalate it to the top management. So self-inspection. Second is the cross-functional audit, that is L2 audit. Here a team is created from the different departments, say from production, quality, EHS, purchase. So 5, 6 members are there, and they do the audit of the other department. Means if EHS department is to be audited, the cross-functional team will be having the members from other department and not from EHS department. If the production audit is to be done of L2 level audit, then there will not be a production member in the auditor team, but from other departments the members will be there for audit, and they will audit that particular department, and there will be the outcomes, and they will be jotted down and then escalated to the higher management. L3 is a corporate audit, means there is a corporate office for the big companies, corporations, and people from corporate office, head office, come to the site and they do the audit. So it is called as L3 audit. And L4 audit is a compliance audit, that is done by the government authorities. So whether you are complying with the laws or not, or it may be done by some legal experts. So it is a regulatory compliance audit. So all the 4 audits, their outcome are very important, and they are entered into risk register appropriately. Means the risk which are up to 10, the risk which are more than 10, like that. Then the next source is the risk assessment. We have seen it that we do the risk assessment and then all the risk assets are entered into the CAPA and risk register. Next is accident and near miss investigation, root cause analysis of the accident and what root cause you have found. Then the next source is the BCP, that is business continuity plan. If there has something gone wrong in the business continuity plan, you have found that it is not the enough whatever you have decided on continuity of the business, so some new controls are required, and so there are certain risks coming out of the BCP, you enter it into the risk register. Then there are certain reports by safety committee, EHS monthly meeting, something is coming out of it, some decisions are coming out of it, that's these actions are needed. So safety committee, EHS monthly meeting and management team meetings. So these are all sources of the CAPA and risk register. Mind well, all these are the sources for the safety planning also. When we were discussing about the planning, when we were discussing the safety management system in short, in the last discourse of the risk management, that from where the data comes on which the planning is to be based. So this is all data sources from where the risks are entered into the CAPA and risk register. At the same time, they become the basis of the safety planning. We looked into CAPA and risk register. We tried to understand what is the meaning of CAPA. We tried to understand the meaning of CAPA register and risk register. We have understood which assess risk are entered into the CAPA register, which CAPA are escalated into the risk register, which are the concern of the higher management, how you have to create the action plan, how you have to create the mitigation plan, that action plan or the mitigation plan, and how you have to follow up, do that follow up of the risk assessment as well as the risk mitigation plan. This is a very, very important part in the safety management. Very important part of the safety management is CAPA and risk register, mitigation of it and its complete follow up. So thank you for watching. Friends, you can resume viewing further. You can switch on to discourse 10, where we will start discussing about 5 steps to establish a safety management system. In discourse 10, we will discuss about the first step, that is policy. Friends, do not forget to like, share, comment and subscribe to the channel. Thank you very much.